Hello, this is Don from How To's and Reviews, and today we're going to be installing the power tow mirror option on this 2019 F150 STX. Now this was upgraded a couple years ago to the 502A technology package, so you must have that first. You have to have the 502A technology package, door harnesses, and modules. That was done a while ago, and I'm going to start off first with this switch. If you don't have this switch, and I can show you the differences when we go in the truck, so this is the switch for the standard power folding mirrors, and the only difference between that switch and the new one that you need is this one has a light on it, so that'll give you your extension and your folding. I don't know how to use that yet, but we'll figure it out once we get the wiring installed. So the first thing we're going to be looking at is on the passenger side, or I'm sorry, on the driver's side. And I'm going to steal the camera from you, Emma. We're going to be looking for some connectors down in here. There's also a grommet that we need to, if I can zoom in, and there's a grommet down here. We're going to cut a zip tie so we can put some wires through. And this was all made possible by somebody on the forum named Ryan B. He helped me out with sending me the diagram and also sending me over some pre-made wiring with the connectors we need. So I'm going to be going in here and first just cutting these zip ties. That's the one zip tie we have to cut because we're going to run some wiring through here and then up into, I think it's going to be this connector here. One of these connectors here. I think it's that red one, but we'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to get these zip ties cut and we'll go from there. First things first, as always, we're going to be disconnecting the battery. And that's just going to be a 10mm wrench. Put that off to the side. So the first connector we're going to be working with is going to be this the red and gray connector. And to get this kind of out of the way, we're just going to disconnect this. You press this down, pull out, and then this tool is great to have. I'm just going to pull this connector off of the firewall first so it's easier to work with. There we go. So once you get this pressed in, this should just unlatch by pulling. So there you go, disconnected. You got your female side of the connector and your male side. So the one that's closest to the firewall is the side that we need to add the 4 pins to begin this process. To do that, we got to take apart the back side of the connector. This is going to be tight. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to videotape this, but I'm going to see if I can give myself a little bit more room. So because I've had issues with these type of connectors before, with the way this is set up, what I decided to do is actually cut a little access hole in the fender well, and I can always patch that up with some tape on the inside. I just cut 3 sides and I pushed the connector through so I can actually get to it, because you need to get to the back of this male connector. And it looks like the connections I'll be working with are in the center, 14 through 21. So first step is we got to pull that retaining clip out of here with a little pick. Second step, we got to remove this by popping this up on this side and popping this side up on this side. And we'll be able to pull this back and then insert the 4 wires that Ryan made for me. So I'll go ahead and do that now. This is a much easier technique. Trust me, you do not want to be in that fender well trying to work with these wires. All right, so first step is to remove this center retaining clip out, and I've got a little pick here. So just come from the side of it, pull it out. It should come out fairly easy. And keep in mind the orientation that it is right now, because you're gonna have to put this back. So again, we're gonna be removing this back retaining clip. Just use a flathead to get it past that. This one's a little more difficult to get than that white one. But once you get it, you can pull this back to expose the back of the pins. And we'll get to you with what wire positions we're using. So the pins we're going to be working with here, there's a designation on the side. Your first rows 1 through 13, 14 through 21 is the second row, and 22 through 34 on the third row. So the ones we're going to be working with are going to be 12 and 13 on the end, and 22 and 23. So I was wrong, we're not using that center row. And one more step before you insert the wire is you need to break off the pins. So that's just really easy. You're just going to break off the pins that you're using on each of those. So 12 and 13 are right here. This way there you go. See, now that hole's open and that one's open. Next we'll get the wire. So here's the harness that Ryan B made me off the forums. I can send you his contact information if you just email me through YouTube. Very nice coating on it. It already has the pins that you need, and that was my struggle, is I didn't know what pins I needed. They make a lot of different types of these TE type pins, and I've got a nice harness that we're just gonna almost plug and play after you get everything set up. So first pin we're gonna do is 12, and that's gonna be orange, and we have to stick it through the back of the connector first. Next one is going to be blue. Again, you want to make sure that that little clip is facing down so it doesn't get caught up in the connectors. And our next pin is going to be 22, which will be white, and that's going to go down through here, and this faces the opposite way. And right now we're just getting them ran through first, and then we will plug them into the actual wire connection. And finally, we've got our black pin, and we'll just feed that one through like so. So now we've got them all fed through the gray connector. You kind of want to get them somewhat even once they come through. And now you're going to plug them in to the respective pins until they click in. All right, so I did the first white one, which was pin 22, just to make sure I knew which direction I was going. But on the bottom row, you want to make sure that that clip is facing up. And all we're going to do is feed that in now through the rubber grommet. Now this does get kind of difficult to get these in. And just make sure that that clip is facing up. And you're going to hear a click sound. Hopefully we can hear it on camera. All right, it's clipped in. So there we go. We've got our orange one in, pin 20. I'm sorry. So we've got our orange one in, pin 13. And then we're just going to feed our blue one in. Again. So now this is the top row. This has got to go in this way. The same way it goes in that gray connector has to go in to the body of where your pins are held. Take some finagling because the wires start to get tight, that's for sure. Definitely not the easiest thing to do. But once you start the feed in, it is fairly easy once you actually get it in. And again, you need to hear that click once it's fed in. There it is. And the way to confirm now, we've just added these 4 pins. And the way to confirm is to make sure that your whole bank of pins is even. So now that we've confirmed that, we can put this part of the connector back on and clip that in. That's it. Confirm here, pins all look straight. And then what we need to do is put that white retainer back in. Now we're ready to feed this through, plug it back in. We are done with the cab side of the truck. This wire does have to run through the grommet of the truck. Again, we got to cut those zip ties. I'm going to try to get a picture of that. I can show it to you. And once we do that, we'll be in the cab of the truck to get to the behind the door jambs. So the hardest part is getting the hanger through the grommet, right, Emma?
Yeah.
So I'm going to feed this up through the firewall again, and you can see that now we have a hanger down here. That's what we use to fish it through. It's down there somewhere, right over here. Can you see it, Em?
No, move your hand.
It's very hard to see, but basically you got to fish a hanger through the grommet. And we're going to tape this wire to that hanger and pull it through so we get them wires into the last connector we need to go to for the driver's side. And just for good practice, I'm going to tape some Tasca tape on the end of this, just so these 2 wires come together. You don't have to do this, but you know, this is wiring for your truck. It's going to move around. I'm not going to tape up the whole thing, but just a good amount so these stay together and this harness is secure. And plus it looks stock because this is the tape that Ford does use for their wiring harnesses. There we go. Looks neat. That'll be able to get plugged right back in. And again, I don't know how you do this under the fender because there's not enough room. So that little access helped out a ton and probably saved me a crap load of hours. So now that we've got this wire connected to this hanger, I am praying that I have enough tape on it because we're gonna have to pull this through the grommet, and this is the wire we connected to the orange and gray connector. So we'll go ahead and give this a shot. I'm gonna feed through this side first as much as I can. So now that we've got our wire ran and fished through the firewall, which will be a pain in the neck, you do got to disconnect from the back side of this connector. Now, I'm not going to be able to get this on camera because it's up in there pretty deep, but just know that the clips for the connectors are on the outside. You just press them in, and the one we're going to be working with here is this black connector. The white retaining clip has to be pressed forward in order to insert the 4 pins that we do, and I can do that one-handed, as you can see. That's off. And now what we need to do is just insert the 4 pins. We're going to start with pin 7, which is the orange, and my connector here is pretty populated, so I'm going to do this probably off camera. I'm going to insert the pins and then I'll come back with you. But the pins that we're going to be looking at connecting on this black connector are going to be pins 7, 15, 20, and 14. Your orange is going to go to 7. Your blue is going to go to 15. Your white's going to go to 20. and your black's gonna go to 14. So I'm gonna put these 4 connections in and check back in, and then get these plugged back in, and the driver's side will be done at that point. So now the pins are all populated in here. It's definitely not an easy task because there's not a lot of room for these pins. You got to twist around a little bit. I had to pull up on this harness tape a little bit to get my new wires in, but they're all locked in. Pins, as I said before. Now you just got to make sure you put this retaining clip, sorry for my lighting, back in, clip it back in like this, and you're good to go. The driver's side is done now, so we're just going to plug this all back in and we'll move on to the passenger side. Hopefully that's a little bit easier. I know that there's no fishing through the firewall, which is a good thing. Now that that side's all done, we're just gonna throw a zip tie on, back on the 2 grommets in the front, in the cab and under the hood. Do that real quick. Last step's gonna be to plug in your connector once you are all done. So just as simple as grabbing it, male and female, plugging it in. There we go, and then you're gonna latch it shut so it clips, and we're gonna put this back onto the firewall. And we can put all this stuff that we kind of moved out of the way back on, because we are officially done this side. The only thing we have to do is hook up the switch, but that shouldn't be too bad. So everything's all tidied up. That little tiny hole, I used some Tasca tape on the inside here. I can't even tell it was done. And we will move on to the passenger side now. All right, passenger side. What's nice is this is the wire for the passenger side. There's only 2 as opposed to 4. But I think the connectors, at least where you have to connect the other end of this, is going to be a little harder. We're going to go into the same exact black connector, just 2 different pins on the passenger side. But we're going to start off by removing a couple panels just to make things easier and easier to get to. So go ahead and move this. Don't mind my dirty truck. My daughter really messed it up.
What?
These all just pull loose. Take that door off. And I don't know if I need to pull this panel. So again, we need to pull the black and gray door jamb connectors. We're only going to be connected on the black side like we did on the driver's side. And then there's a connector that's snuck way up there above the BCM. We'll do that one second. Let's get the door stuff done first. So the passenger side is a little more difficult. I think what I'm going to have to end up doing is pulling this grommet out and putting the wire in from this side, because as you can see, it is very populated and very hard to see what you need to do. Now, for the even more fun part here is there's a connector above the BCM, way up there. Way up there. I can't even get it on camera right now, but there it is. See it hiding underneath this panel? That's the connector you need to disconnect to get them 2 wires in the connector. I'm going to work on that. I'm not going to be able to do that on camera, but hopefully we'll get this done and show you how to do it. So here we have the connector down finally. What I had to do is use a long flathead screwdriver. I had to remove that bottom panel I showed you earlier. And this connector clips off just like the other side does, but it is one of the latching ones. And what we need to do is insert on 7 and 8, which is the top row from where we're looking at right now. So pin 1 starts here, 7 and 8 is where we're inserting. And of course we got to remove this retaining clip first, put our 2 pins in, and then we've got 2 more pins to complete for the passenger side. This side's tight. It is not easy. I thought it was going to be much easier than it is, but we're getting closer. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this retainer and insert the 2 pins. As you can see, we got our 2 pins in, clipped in. So that's ready to go up into the slot to get locked back down. Next is going to be our door jamb connector, which is going to be fun. So again, the only way to get to this side connector, the black at the bottom here in this door jamb, is to pull it out from this side. It is absolutely impossible to go in between here, behind here. You're not gonna get it. So you have to pull it out from this side. I'm gonna disconnect the black and get the last 2 wires in. Again, because this is so tight, I'm gonna use a wire here and fish through and hopefully get to the other side so I can get my other 2 wires up into this harness. I've got the black disconnected now. Once I do that, I'll check back in. All right, fish the wires up through. Fairly easy when you use a wire. Better than trying to figure out a route than trying to feed it yourself because it's tight on this side. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this electrical tape and put these 2 wires in. It's always fun trying to get the back of these connectors, but if you look at the clip, we're gonna go in 5 and 6, and luckily they're right up top, 5 and 6. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the orange in pin 5 and the gray in pin 6. Don't forget that the retainer's got to be removed in order to put these 2 pins in. So there you go. You can see our 2 new pins added. We're going to plug this bad boy in, put all the connectors back up in, re-zip tie that grommet on there, and close up all. And our last step's going to be installing the switch and getting this thing tested out. Now on for the last step. I use a plastic trim tool to pry from the back. You always want to get that back clip first, and then the rest should just lift straight up and out. And we're going to disconnect our wiring harness and then remove the 3 Torx screws that hold this switch in place, and we're going to put the new one in. All right, now we're going to put our new switch with the telescopic mirror in. Everything lines up, looks good. And we're gonna tighten these 3 screws. Now that that's in, we're just gonna repeat the process. Plug in our cable. Again, you have to have the 502A package installed along with new door modules. This is an STX, but I've done a lot of work to it, so I've had the new modules and the new door harnesses in for quite some time because I had the standard mirrors. But I need the telescopic feature because of this camper. It's very wide, and the only way I'm going to see is if I've got the telescopic feature. We're going to pop that back in. There we go. And our final step is going to be connecting the battery back up and testing this out. That battery terminal nice and tight. Let's go test it. So here we go. Test with you guys present. Power extend. So I guess we hit this button and we use our arrow. So if we go left, there we go. Check that out. And it looks like both of them are doing it. That was a success. That mob was a success. I guess to fold them now, what you do is you hit the down arrow and they fold. And then they unfold. So I have officially got all the features working of these mirrors in my STX trim. And the only one I want to get working is the Bliss, the monitoring system. And that'll be next. Thanks for watching. I hope this helps people out on YouTube. I tried finding videos on this. There's nothing available. So I'm pretty much the only one that might have this up at this point. Please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Thank you from How To's and Reviews.